Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a special edition of Focus on Liberia. My name is Dennis Jai, and of course, we're broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. In this special edition, we are hosting the president of the Union of Liberian Associations in the Americas, Mr. Shiwoh Kamara, is joining us tonight so that we can talk about ULA. He's just been elected president. He has his 100-day deliverables. We're going to go into it. With me here to discuss is my co-host, Mr. Ansoni Sie. Mr. Sie, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Dennis, thank you. I'm excited to have in our midst as guest Shiwoh Kamara, president of the Union of Liberian Association in the Americas. This is a special edition, like you said, and I'm excited to be here to talk about ULAA. ULAA is in Liberians' mouth, myself included. We want to see good things at that level of ULAA. For those of us who think differently, sometimes we feel that the history is not good on their side. But he's here, and sometimes we see things from afar differently. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much. And I'm happy to host a friend and a brother, Mr. Shiwoh Kamara. By the way, he's the president of the Union of Liberian Association of Americas. Mr. Kamara, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you, Dennis, and thank you, Mr. Sie.
And just to let you know, Mr. Shiwoh Kamara, he's a trained social worker, but before that, a teacher, a trade unionist, and a member of the Union of the Association of Liberian Teachers under Mr. Safele Jones. When I was growing up, all I heard was Safele Jones, and I wished to see. But these were the people that were behind Safele Jones, writing all the papers. Again, Mr. Kamara, we want to welcome you. And this time, not as a trade unionist, not as a teacher association person, but as the president of ULAA. Again, we want to welcome. ULAA is a very old organization, as far back as 1976. This organization was established, and people like he has different people who headed it. I remember Tambaka A. Jangaba in 1974 to 1976, Norma Abayomi Ko 1976 to 77, Jackie Goodrich, Francois Rouet, G. Moses Duopo, Ba Mbala, Thomas Badio Collins, Babi Sedemani, Mamadi Woti, Jukonti, Thomas Weweyu, Sai Nyokron Yasio, Mafi Kai, Tob Bini, and the list go on and on. So, Mr. Kamara, I'm happy to welcome you because you are in the company of some great Liberians. And so, again, welcome, welcome, and welcome. We're glad to have you.
Thank you, Dennis, and Mr. Sie, and for FOL hosting me, and of course, ULAA. I'm hoping that we can have a very, fruitful deliberations here tonight.
Good. First, we want to say congratulations on your election as the president of ULAA. And for those who don't know, I was part of the campaign some time ago. And Mr. Kamara is a friend and a brother and someone who we've worked together in the ULAA cycle before he was the president of the Liberian Association in Pennsylvania when I was living in Pennsylvania. Correct. And I've known him for that long. Again, we're happy to welcome you. Mr. Sie, take it away from me.
Dennis, thank you so very much. Again, we want to welcome all our listeners around the world as we play host to the president of ULAA, Mr. Shiwoh Kamara. Well, folks, this is what we're going to do today in this particular exclusive with somebody who is a dear friend to Dennis Jai. We will look at brief history of ULAA, what ULAA is all about, and then after that, we will look at the show agenda. In that agenda, he has something called the first 100 days deliverable. We will look into that. So, folks, if you are just joining us, welcome. let us get started here right away. Hit that share button and let go into the discussion as I turn things over to my man Dennis. Yeah, Dennis.
So, Mr. Kamara, let's start by saying, introduce us first to this umbrella organization for those who may not know what is ULA and who are all the members and what is ULA all about. If you can briefly summarize that for us.
Thank you, Dennis. Well, ULA represents Union of Liberian Associations in Americas. This organization, as early as 1972, was visioned by a group of students who were studying around the Pennsylvania, New York, and other states in the United States and felt the compelling reasons to assemble themselves into a group, to fight for their own academic freedom. But as it was formed in 1974, it was actually when it was actually formulated into a charter organization. But as soon as it was formed in 1974, at the time you had the one-party system in Liberia. You have just a hegemony of few elites who were controlling the country, and the country was heavily, split in terms of, resources benefiting only the few. And of course, ULA saw that as a reason, to begin the advocacy role that led up to 1980, and of course, a change of government. ULA didn't necessarily change the government, but it began to create an enabling environment to educate people that you needed a multi-party system. So ULA, as it is today, has chapter membership based, and each of those members chapters have their own members within their organizations, and together all of those chapters, which are practically states, make up ULA. If I may, stretch a little bit further, I think it is important for all Liberians to be a part of ULA because it brings the voice of unity. It has a name recognition, and for example, if I may talk about some of the track records of good things for ULA, when Liberians were faced with deportation for DED, it was ULA that was leading that charge. And today, of course, part of that work led to what we have today as LRIF, the Liberian Refugee Immigration Fairness Act. So these are just some of the benefits and the history of the creation of ULA.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Kamara, for that little brief history. Stay on the history. You talk about advocacy. Advocacy, sometimes people see it as politics.
Mm-hmm.
It is obvious, and it's a new fact that ULA as an institution and a good number of 8 key members in the past and even to today's day want to see a good Liberia. And so they talk about leadership in our country. And quite too often, people say, oh, these people are too political, and even being accused of having hands in, regime being, made ugly. Why are people saying this about ULA in the first place? And some people will continue to say, are they right? Or it just that they don't understand in the advocacy that ULA is trying to carry on here. What's your own take?
Well, first of all, I think it is the rights of Liberians from all walks of life, whether in the diaspora or any group of people, to have a say, to criticize.
Mm-hmm.
Criticism is not necessarily the wrong thing to do. Sometimes even sharpening, your vision and mission. Mm-hmm. So I've heard some of those criticisms, just like many other organizations that have been criticized. Mm-hmm. But one thing I know is that, the history that we have today about Liberia, for example, the multi-party democracy today that we have in our homeland,
Mhm.
that one of us can even sit here, and be able to grill their own congressman.
Mhm.
Or you can sit here and call your senators, as we've been doing lately with the dual citizenship fight.
Mhm.
Those are things that ULA was a part and parcel of the general Liberian population and other advocate organizations, to bring about multi-party democracy. So I know ULA has its own share of history in terms of criticism. There were times that, of course, after 1980, some of the names that Dennis was reading, some
Mhm.
of them took jobs, within, the government. But ULA itself was criticizing itself. There was a debate as far as being able to seep into the history that, some members of ULA were saying the same standards that you had the two-way party took, you need to hold the indigenous Liberian to the same standard. So if these people have come and they are skewed negatively away from the government, they see corruption that they condemn and everything else, so ULA was kind of like critiquing itself.
Mhm.
So up to this point, I can say that the organization, it still stands, at a higher ground. It still represents the wishes and aspirations of Liberian people, and it's still doing some good thing, to bring relief in whatever way it is. One of them we
Thank
just did was El Rift, recently. So
thank
there,
you.
yes.
Thank you. In advocacy too, and in any organization for that matter, members and I don't know if I can say past members or I can say past leaders, sometimes become the mirror of that particular institution.
Mhm.
So if you look at people who have played leadership role in Yola and also play national leadership role, will you say their contribution to leader, or to Yola and then in national government actually will have or has a reflection on Yola in any way, shape, or form? Because the reason I'm asking the question is that there are people out there, oh, you see the person that from Yola, nothing good comes out of Yola. So to add to that, who are some leaders of Yola, past and present, that you can look at and say, hey, this is what Yola should be or is that you can be proud of?
If I understood you well,
Mhm.
is uh, I guess the question you're asking is that people have criticized, individuals who are former leaders of Liberia and perhaps might have maybe left the union and served their term well and went to Liberia and maybe took a job. Or the assumption is that, people come to these positions, because they're looking for a job in Liberia. If that is the assumption, my personal view is that, and of course, as president of ULA, is that I think, you know, I don't see anything wrong with somebody serving in a position like ULA, and after they have served their term and they go to Liberia and they have a job and they're serving their country, I don't see anything wrong with it. However, as I'm a sitting president now, as the Union of Liberian Union president, and I go to Liberia tomorrow to represent ULA, and then I'm offered a position, then I stay right there and say my resignation and say I cannot come and may never grant the vice president is president the next day. In my own assessment, that kind of attitude, doesn't serve too well. That is totally wrong. By my own conviction, I think it should not, it should not be done. But anybody who has served the union diligently, because imagine, see, these are volunteer organizations
Mhm.
that people have volunteered their time, their energy, and some of them have been really great people. Now, in terms of reflection, when I came to the Union Liberian Association of Pennsylvania, the people that I met were Emmanuel Wetty, then of course Anthony Kesseley, then of course Gisler and Vama Fofana.
Mhm.
Well, there were times that we collaborated together with some good, things. We worked together. But on the overall, I see these people to be, distinguished men and women who mean well for their community. But if people understand and contextualize them in a different way, well, we are all entitled to our opinion. But I think some of them are a good reflection for our country. And, that's how far I can say.
Dennis, you are muted.
Mr. Kamara, thank you. Let's go more into ULA. I go on the website and we read the general principles of ULA are to promote and encourage national reconciliation, integration, and unification, preserve and protect Liberian culture, history, and traditions, uphold and defend fundamental rights, including the human rights and civil liberties of Liberians everywhere, cultivate and harness the energies and resources of Liberians to improve quality of life for all Liberians abroad, and advocate and advance the cause of constitutional democracy and sustainable national development. Summarize for me what that means and if ULA is actually committed to those. If yes, what are some of the results?
Well, one of the advocates that I was talking about is that today we enjoy multi-party democracy in our country, and of course, culture and values of Liberians and the country itself and development. ULA has been able to be the voice of the versatile Liberians in the diaspora, in terms on issues of education, on issues of health, on issue of road network, every other thing pertaining to the development of Liberia. ULA has been a pivotal part. Even currently, ULA over some years now has been fighting for, diaspora voting. These are, issues that are very critical to our well-being as Liberians. In fact, there was even a time that former President Gisler and other people even took a container to Liberia, books, so that a library could be created at the National Archive Center. But for some reason, those books, they didn't make it, out of the container because, of government bureaucracy. But all that effort was, wasted. So ULAS basically those principles that I ascribe to, it has been trying to live up to the expectation of those principles. And if I
And
can
on the
remember some
cultural
more,
part, how has ULA tried to promote the Liberian culture here? I know we do the Flag Day, but has there been any sustained effort, especially as we pass our tradition from us now to our children and other, and even the unborn? How does ULA try to promote the Liberian culture right here in the diaspora?
well, I mean, you talk about, what do you call it, hosting of our, national emblem, the Flag Day. Most of our communities that ULA are part of ULA have tried, to host those. Uh, July 26 programs. ULA through its member chapters have been able to, hold those, programs, and individually chapters have been able to do some other, activities on their own. So remember, Dennis, ULA is the leader of all these chapter-based organizations. So its goal is to help those chapters, create a framework so that those activities that will enhance, culture, that will enhance the history, that will enhance even our, existence as a country, are done through, the chapter. So I remember, for example, in Ohio, people were hosting the July 26 program. And of course, the cultural Liberia was heavily embedded in it. In another, state in the Midwest and many other places, Buffalo here, they usually host the Flag Day program. Even my own state here, Pennsylvania. So the other thing too about the culture is that one of the things that I want to focus on as president is that you have maybe like a 3 or 4 generation in ULA. So if you look at some of the people currently that I am amassing, the team that I'm building, I'm trying very hard to bring some young people, who will be able to take over, when we have left, ULA. So ULA technically does not become just, older folks, organization. So in that way, I think we're transmitting the culture and the legacy of Liberia.
Mr. President, I'm glad Dennis brought this up, trying to promote Liberian culture. And there, I also saw history of Liberia. And you say you there to just build a framework. There are Liberian organizations across the U.S., and they have yearly activities. And through these activities, the culture of Liberia, it's been displayed, it's been shown, and, maybe to their children here. I am not convinced that ULA is coordinating in an intentional way to achieve its goal here. If I'm wrong, then I would demand specifics. What specific involvement annually that ULA communicates with Liberian organization? Because I know you have to work through all the Liberian organization if you can. So can you state specifically what are the things you communicate with
So,
institutions?
for example, the ULA has organs under the Constitution. The National Leadership Council, which is composed of all the chapter presidents, are the leaders for these different community organizations. Tomorrow, as president of ULA, I'll be meeting them for the first time to lay out my agenda. And that agenda includes all of my platform that brought, that elected me, the AEROU, which also has, some cultural embodiment. So when I sell them to the chapter leaders, then the chapter leaders themselves will incorporate and embody whatever I'm selling to them into their own platform in their individual community. So that's how ULA, works. ULA works through its chapters. ULA works through the general membership. And without the chapters, sometimes we refer to them as the owners of ULA because ULA makes up, all of the chapters. So those are some of the specific I can ascribe to.
So what's about the history? You talk about promoting Liberian history too. When you say promote it, are you promoting it here in the U.S. or in Liberia as well? And tell me how you're doing that.
Well, the thing about it is that I'm just coming in as a new president. I might not be able to say to you, clearly.
Well, you have been involved with Louis.
Correct. But I know that ULA, in terms of the transmitting of the culture of Liberia, has done so in many other aspects. I talk about the Flag Day. I talk about.
I'm asking you specifically about the history of Liberia now.
Yeah, but when you talk about the history, whenever you host a national event, Mr. Sia, you definitely have to, proclaim the history of the country, how the country started. For example, if 2015, 2017, and many other years, when we go to City Hall, at City Hall in Philadelphia, when the flag of Liberia is being hosted, a brief narrative of ULA history and how the country started and its foundation is clearly evident. So that is something that each community does. So that's what I'm saying to you. Doing that alone is enhancing the foundation, the culture, and the history of Liberia.
So let me use Delia myself for an example. How is my son getting that history? Because this is like the vision of ULA, right? How is Dennis' son getting that history? In other words, how is ULA engaging me? How is ULA engaging Dennis to achieve its goal that Liberian history, is being made available to Dennis' son? Because Dennis' son, is the one for whom ULA is ULA, isn't it? How?
See, let me go back to basic second grade civic. Okay?
Excellent.
The family is the basic unit of society. So you, Dennis, myself, first of all, owe allegiance to our own children.
Mhm.
to teach them our culture, to teach them our history,
Mhm.
so that there's a continuity after we shall have left and gone, or even while we are still seeing it. So you and myself and Dennis have that responsibility.
Mhm.
But again, in your own individual chapter,
Mhm.
okay, like if wherever you come from, your membership to that chapter binds you as a member to espouse and recommend and suggest how the functionary of that chapter, can meet the needs and aspirations of Liberians. And if it is true culture, if it is true teaching, maybe one day in a month, the history and culture of Liberia, then that's good. But I'm very convinced that many chapters across the United States are doing some of those things in their own individual chapter. But again, like I said, the basic unit of society, begins from the family. So all of us have the responsibility before even it goes to the chapter, before it comes to the national level of ULA.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Go ahead, Dennis.
All right. So, Mr. Kamara, I know we're going to go into your deliverables quickly to see what your plans are. But let's do some background here once more. We talk about the advocacy, and Asuni asked a question earlier about advocacy during in the 1970s when we had a one-party state. Advocacy was very easy because everyone was united against one-party state, and sometimes it even became like a Congo country fight. Then, so it was easy to fight, one party state. And then came to the Samuel Doe rule, which many of us believe was dictatorship. So that fight too was organized. Coming to Charles Taylor, which was a rebel government of dictatorship, it was also an organized fight. But now coming to President Salif and the current president, we are where there is multi-party democracy. The politics is so polarized, and whatever you do, you are looked at as being an opposition because these people too have all the political parties. They have their fans. Some of them complete sycophants. So as you do the advocacy, how do you really walk that fine? How does ULA walk the fine line of true advocacy and not being seen as opposition or someone who is just uh, overly critical of government?
Thank you, Dennis. Let me go back a little bit in the history that you just outlined. I was still a very young person in the 70s. So I watched my brothers, from which I was drinking, that fountain of, some of the things that I'm doing currently as ULA president. And I felt in compelled that there was a reason, to fight for ordinary people, because everybody cannot tie their own bootstrap. But very quickly, Dennis, the 80s, the decades of the 80s against that regime wasn't that just, an easy process. I was a student leader then, and then I became a teacher, so I know some of it. It wasn't that easy. Some people were imprisoned. As a result, some people, even lost their lives. You remember what happened at University of Liberia, campus. So, uh, so those were not easy things, that we can describe as were well structured. It's just that you had, the people who were leaders were actually very strong leaders, and they were able to mobilize people even in the face of resources. Now, today, I can say this to you. On October 17, when I was inducted as president, um, my overarching statement was that this administration is willing to work with the government of Liberia, is willing to collaborate, is willing to partner, is willing to sit down with the government of Liberia to discuss issues that are relevant to the Liberian people. However, this administration will be as critical as necessary when there's a need to do so. So I as president, I'm not going to be a wishy-washy or try, to kind of maybe not be in the limelight because I think that some pressure will be brought to bear. So, for the next 2 years, that I will be president, ULAA will be very clear on issue that it supports the government on issue that it doesn't agree with the government, ULAA will be clear on it.
Mr. Kamara, from experience, right? Even writing the position statement is very difficult because, take for instance, ULA is a membership chapter-based organization, so you have all the chapters, right? So if you want to even take a position of government, there are people in your ranks and file that are for the government, and so they don't want to participate. When I say it was easier, I didn't mean that you could just do it, but as ULA, you could easily find a definite position. But now, if you start writing something, people who support CDC will not want to take part, and we saw that happening. Starting with President Sirleaf. So how do you really achieve having a strong position where ULA stand with all the different interests that are within ULA?
So one of the things that a good leader is supposed to do is to be able to work with individuals, is be able to build that coalition among your own ranks and file. For example, since I became president, except maybe like around Thanksgiving Day, my administration has been meeting almost every week or sometimes twice a week. There are some disagreements with the way we want to lead or some of the agenda items, but for the most part, there's a strong camaraderie. So as a leader of the union or any group of people, I think it is your responsibility to build that cohesiveness. And if you can build that cohesiveness and be able, to sell your vision to the people, I think they're going to buy into it. So far, since the leadership started, like I said, there are some things that other people don't agree with, but at the end of the day, I always remind my executive committee and some other people that this is what we told the Liberian people. This is what we told the Liberian people. And Dennis, I'm going to promise that tonight. This is going to be different. We promised Liberian people a new ULAA. We're going to stick to that.
My
Thank
final
you.
question before Mr. Sia go into your deliverables is the issue of continuity has been a problem with most of our Liberian organizations. Even in Liberia, every new president wants to undo what the other persons left and start from scratch. Particularly here in the diaspora, when a new leadership takes over, they always sometimes zero balance in
The
the
account.
bank, and everything is starting from scratch. How do you hope to build on what the former president, the man you succeeded, Mr. Vamba Fofana, how will you build on some of the things that he started? What are some of the projects and plans that you're going to continue from the Vamba Fofana administration?
So Dennis, let me just draw a contrast. I think if a leader understands what his vision and mission is or are, then they can lead. You cannot lead just by getting up tomorrow morning and you dream of some ideas and you think is the right thing to do. So just as I promised the Liberian people that one of the hallmark of my leadership will be effectiveness, meaning that whatever we do is going to be evidence-based. We're being assessing. For example, part of my 100 years plan is that we're reviewing all of the practices and procedures of ULAA. Where there are good things, we're going to continue with it. Where there's a need for change, of course, we're going to put a framework in place. And that's what currently we are working on. So I didn't have the opportunity, for my transitional committee, to work with Vamba Fofana. But, everything that he passed on to me, I'm reviewing them. And, for continuity, for example, there's just simple thing like a financial, procedure, how funds are disbursed. Those are things that I've seen some documents. We are working on it to review it, and my financial people are currently looking at that aspect to make some, recommendations to me. So whatever Vama left, we're not going to kick it out of the door. We're going to see if, it's something we can continue, and we'll continue it.
Thank you, sir, very much. Before we get into your deliverable there, I want to follow up with Dennis's question. Did you get a 10 over no? Did you mean money in the account of ULAA when you took over as president?
Well, I got one of the things I don't like to do is to, to criticize. Okay, I got a turnover folder. I still have it here in my living room on October 17th, and as per report, and of course, further information provided to me by financial secretary, and this was public. Vama turned over about $10,000, and yes, and he provided some documents. That document again, because the administration did not provide a transitional committee, that would have worked with my transitional committee. So I turned that over to the financial policy committee, to look at it, and give some, recommendations how we move forward.
Thank you so very much. Mr. Kamara is our guest here at Focus on Liberia. He is the president of ULAA, and we are in an exclusive conversation with him. Let's look at your agenda, the show agenda, we'll call it here, and also your 100-day deliverables. Let us start with your 100 days deliverable, first of all, and I will read that. 1, or A, grant the appropriate structure and recognition to the Liberian Association of Washington, D.C., and the metro areas as the national headquarters of the union. Build a strong union through accountability and financial transparency. We will re-establish the voucher system and abolish the use of the ATM card as the primary source for expending union finances. And you also want to say, seek to bring together the brand community organization under ULAA through effective dispute resolution within affected member organizations. So let's start with the first one there. Where are you with these?
I would have loved to give you a broader picture,
mm-hmm.
and then streamline it, to some specifics, and then talk about deliverables. Okay. But if you want me to answer your question that you are asking me, then I will follow your lead.
Go ahead with your broad answer, whatever way you prefer.
All right, thank you. So I ran on the platform, and my team and I ran on the platform of AEIOU, advocacy, effectiveness, inclusiveness, outreach, and transparency. So out of those vows, we developed a 100-day plan into 3 legs. 1, engagements. 2, reviewing and revising the policies and procedures of the union. And 3, rebranding the union through the communication and other structure of the union. So the questions you just asked, fall within the 3 smaller category: engagement, policies and procedures, and of course, rebrand the union. So in that respect, one of the things we've done is that the Secretary General is heading the committee on communication and rebranding the entire union. Okay. So what they are trying to do is that the virtual office, which we are still paying for, we're going to create a telephone system that will have specifics. That, for example, if somebody calls, the call will be routed in a way, whoever you want to speak to. If it is the president, vice president, secretary general, it will be routed, as such. So they are working on that. but the diaspora office is still being maintained and we still, paying for. I forgot the other question that you asked about, uh, I think community engagement, you said?
Yes, organization, the community organization. You said
Correct,
you're going
correct,
to look into
correct.
dispute
So,
or
so,
dispute or
so
resolution.
correct.
Mhm,
So one of the major items that we ran on as a group
mhm,
was that we will, ensure that we build a stronger voice within the union.
mhm,
So that is the engagement aspects. The engagements, which is the outreach, which is the inclusiveness. So just 63 days being in office,
mhm,
63 days being in office, besides being invited by development and county organizations which I have honored their invitation,
mhm,
I have been able to restore back North Dakota, my administration.
mhm,
North Dakota, for a long time, their new leadership was introduced to the former administration. For some reasons, they were not waiting to come back to the union, being able to reunite them back, to the union. In 63 days, I also have written a letter to the Michigan chapter because my vice president was arranging that, and they said they wanted a letter. We sent our letter, to them to come back to the union. We're also working very hard to admit Florida because they said they want to come back to the union. Florida want to come back to the union. Rhode Island, on the 11th, I met the president of Rhode Island, Mr. Winston Gould. When I was in Connecticut for the inauguration, I met him and he asked for a letter so that he can set a date for us to go to Rhode Island. That letter has been written. We're just waiting for them to respond to us. Uh, in Massachusetts, there's a federation there. Well, the startup quote is that the federation was suspended. But besides the federation, we met there's a Liberian Association of they call them in Lowell, Massachusetts.
Yeah,
mhm,
that's the
I met
Merrimack Valley.
Ambrose, yeah. I met President Ambrose and the Secretary General Jacob and another staunch member of their committee. So that would be like a fallback position, and it will be determined maybe through the board. If that doesn't work, then perhaps the idea of members, chapter coming back to the union would be. So, see,
mhm,
practically, we've been able to, in a very short period of time, just
mhm,
3 days, reconcile North Dakota back to the union. We set up
mhm,
communication to Michigan and, of course, Rhode Island. And
mhm.
now we're looking into Massachusetts and many other, other organizations. Because when you have a stronger organization, then you have a stronger voice and you have a stronger power.
All right. Let me follow up, Dennis. Let me follow. I want to know your leadership of ULAA. Does your leadership answer phone call? That's one. Two, does your leadership respond to email? And in your 100 days deliverable, the three questions I'm asking, you talk about, you say you will reestablish the voucher system and abolish the use of ATM card. Why? Is that better than using the ATM card? That might be easier for you that it automatically or generates the transaction record in the account, right? So just tell me, why is that better? Why are you changing it?
The good thing here is that, and this is not a laughing matter, but when you have, a host who, was one time a Secretary General candidate, he
Mhm.
goes back into the archive and is able to, dig some other, relevant information.
Okay.
So that ATM thing, I think, is is something that we were espousing in 2015.
Mhm.
But yeah, on a very serious note, there will be no ATM card. I haven't even seen one, and I will not encourage one. Everything that we do will be done through a voucher system. Right now, whenever there's a request, I make that request. through email to the financial secretary, and he disburses the fund. My name, which I will do at some point because I want my name to be in an account, but my name is not even in an account yet. But we're operating exactly what we promised. Phone calls, oh yes. Those who know me know that I respond to my phone calls. Even if I miss that phone call, I'm still going to return it at some point. So I answer my call and say, to tell you the truth, the same modus operandi that we ran this campaign with, that very campaign mode that we were in that elected us, is the same thing that we transfer in governance. Every day we wake up, July is the first thing and July is the last thing on our mind. So because we don't want to disappoint Liberian people, as much as a volunteer organization, it has an embodiment of work that we have to do, but we will do our best. So I'm the president that will answer the 3 a.m. call when you place that call.
And the email.
And I'm the president who also responds to text messages.
The email.
And text messages too.
Okay. Dennis?
And Mr. C, I think the president tried to pull my leg in there on the ATM card. The history we have with the ATM card when we were running was that became like a Chinese buffet, because whoever has the ATM card
Was
can
swapping.
swap it anywhere. And so there was not much accountability. So we had this joke that people were using the ATM card to buy Grumpy at the gas station.
I know, right?
So it's from that background, I think he's speaking when he said there will be no use of ATM card.
Yeah, there'll be no use. Yes.
So, but again, I have to come back. I use ATM card a lot, and it's easier to see all the transaction in your account. It helps to keep the record clean and neat, where time, and all that, what, and so. And I'm not familiar with the voucher, so I'm asking a question for Liberians like me who used to ATM transaction, as opposed to those who don't see what voucher is. I hear about it, but how is that better? And that's what it is, and how is that better, and why you think it will serve the union best compared to the ATM?
Thank you, Mr. C. There's really a huge difference.
Okay.
As to how an individual can spend his or her own money versus how an organization that the leader is accountable to a huge number of people like ULAA, right? Even the people who maybe have not paid a penny or one day might not even pay a penny,
right?
They can be the sharpest critics. So I think it makes sense for you to use, your money that way, but it doesn't make sense for a bigger organization to transact businesses like that. I think every businesses that the organization does should be done through a method that can be traceable. For example, I sent some requests to the treasurer, I think a week ago, to pay money to a couple of organizations that we commit ourselves to.
Right.
He did that through Zelle, and the acknowledged receipt, so the record is there. But more besides, a good organization needs to plan ahead. So what we're doing now is that we're completing a budget that has been processed through the entire executive committee. We've heard the budget. That budget, we're just looking for little things to be done from the regional level. And once those budgets are submitted, I'm going to send it to the board that will encompass almost everything that I see that money will be spent on in the future. If that budget is approved, that is my yardstick as to how I can spend money as a national president. And that don't necessarily have to be done through an ATM card. However, like I was in Connecticut, I rented a car. If I'm going to make, if I think it's fair enough, if I'm going to ask for reimbursement, I'm going to attach, the rental agreement, which actually stipulates, how much was spent and everything else, and submit it to the national treasurer. In that way, if the money is paid back to me, anybody who goes tomorrow and sees, that money was spent, the rental agreement is there, the invitation from Connecticut is also there to explain that the union was invited to Connecticut, and on the basis of that, this is how they spend money. But it is a bad practice to pay money as we go, like you are suggesting with your personal money. We can't do that for a big national organization like ULAA.
All right. Thank you so very much, folks in cyberspace. You're watching Focus on Liberia. I'm Anthony Sear, co-hosting with my partner Dennis Jai. We have with us Mr. Shiwoh Kamara, National President of ULAA, and we are in an exclusive with him. We talk about the history of ULAA briefly, and we also talk about what ULAA is all about. We just concluded a conversation on his 100 days deliverable, but there's something we call the show agenda. What are the projects that he as leader, along with his team, want to carry on to make ULAA what it's supposed to be, not only here, but also in Liberia. So talking about that, Dennis, if you don't mind, Mr. Shiwoh Kamara, we also see you talking about mobilization of financial resources, and I couldn't agree with you. You need money to do all these big things you're talking about, and so you said fully utilize the union's tax exempt status to mobilize financial resources for the union and implement the Liberian Diaspora Development Fund project that seeks annual financial contribution from individual Liberians for national development programs. So you're talking how you're going to get money here. That way you just explain, is this different from the previous? If not, how do you do it in a way that you will get big money for the big things you want to do, you and your team?
So one of I'm trying very hard to begin this organization at a level that it has a very unique and sound foundation, policy-wise, and practices. That is the second arm of my 100-day plan, reviewing the policies and procedure of the union. For example, it's surprising to note, I don't even want to say this, but I'm going to say it, that the union itself doesn't, as ULAA, as an organization, does not have a tax exempt status. One of
all these years.
Say that?
All these years.
But however, it is one of the organs in the union that has the tax exempt status. Okay. And that tax exempt status belongs to
the chapter.
Social services organ of the union.
Okay.
All right. So what we are doing is that after review all the policies and our financial statements and everything else, then we say, okay, it's about time that now that we have a very good foundation, let us begin to ask for grant. Because you cannot ask for grant when you don't really have a 501c3 status. What are the grants? What are the things that, because when you ask for grant, they look back at your history.
Right.
So they look at your history. What have you done in the past? So these are all things that we really want to do. Project-wise, in Liberia, sure, we really want to, because if we open up our mouth as a diaspora organization, I think, like our people say, is you put your money where your mouth is, right? You have to do that. Now, you spoke about a Liberian Diaspora Fund. Some of my predecessors, I think it was Anthony Kessley, who established a diaspora, fund. His vision was that people will contribute to it, and they will help, to run some of the community organizations here and help with projects in Liberia. But money was paid to it. People were supposed to make contribution annually. Some people paid, some people did not pay. So we're going to re-look at that and see how we can chart a new course for the future. I'm not going to announce what I think we will be doing. I got some framework in my mind. But yes, we believe that ULAA should embark on projects, to identify projects, and should put a foot on the ground, just as they will be telling the government of Liberia, these are things that we think you should not be doing or you should be doing. ULAA will be a force to reckon with if
And Mr. Kamara, if I may follow up,
if it is contributing to the national development of our country.
Yeah, if I may follow up, have you come up with your budget, maybe for your first year? If you have done so, how much do you intend to raise? Maybe millions or thousands? I hope you're thinking big. I'm a big thinker. That's why I'm asking. How much do you intend to raise in your first year?
Let's wait for that to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I did request on the board, a very short-term budget when I came in, and our budget expired December 31st. I'm pounding my financial team the budget that we just reviewed to send it to me so I can send it to the board. But yes, it's in thousands. And when
do you think you can raise at least $1 million in a year to fund projects in Liberia?
Well, let's hope and let's see. Let's hope.
It seems to be you're not thinking big about raising money. This is where the money is. Raise millions.
I can't rule out anything.
Okay.
I can't rule out anything here.
Okay. All right, then stay on the financial thing, right? We can all be on ULAA as we always do. But we Liberians need to put money in ULAA. When ULAA is not dead now, then we'll have the moral ground to pour our mouths on Liberia. On ULAA. But part of the problem is that maybe the organization has not positioned itself, has not justified why Liberians in America should give. Because if you look at the population, and I know the exact figure, if just one Liberian who is of working age can give $1, just a month to ULAA, that would be significant money that can do something in Liberia.
Correct.
Because I read all your plans, the projects on the website, right? These are big things you want to do. Yeah. How do you get to that point where a Liberian working to say, $1 is nothing, I can give it to ULAA because I can trust ULAA?
So you are a very good host, and I really want to say a big thank you to you. You talk about dreaming big. I'm really dreaming big. And my predecessors did well with the Liberian development, fund and everything else. But sometimes maybe it's a little bit too difficult to maybe contribute $50 versus $1, like you said. I haven't sold this idea to my people, but I'm thinking that if we say $1 for Liberia project as a nomenclature from every Liberian that goes into a special fund, that we have trusted people that can manage that fund, and we do an assessment project by project. What is the hospital? What is the road? Whatever it is, and we are able to execute that project, and there's an evidence that the project is being executed. I think Liberian people would trust that their organization is being well managed. I'm going to be beaten by some of my people, but you teasing my brain, so I'm going to let it out. So these are things that I'm actually...
That's not what we do here. We teach people until they break it out.
So these are things that I'm taking on as a president, and it be on my mind for a little bit, that we can sell that idea to Liberian, contribute, $1, to ULAA. And in that way, we make sure that the money is well managed and is doing the business of projects in Liberia. Then, and it doesn't even have to be Liberians, but friends of Liberia, who are actually philanthropic, will be able to help the country. So when we telling the government about congestion in Monrovia, maybe we can contribute to it. Part of the thing I would actually like to see as president, now that you are allowing me to say some of the things I want to say, but my first focus is really build the organization on a sound foundation before I start moving out. I'm thinking that one day we can call you, as the host of Focus on Liberia, maybe whatever your expertise are, to go to Liberia, contribute maybe a week or two, if you are a teacher, if you are a nurse, or whatever professional areas. But those are things that are still in the future yet. But we are dreaming big.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Kamara. Most of the time, the way we raise money here in the diaspora is always membership taxation. We see that inaugural ball is coming, or people you pay $100 sitting fee, you pay this. So we always getting money from our members, and that does not go far enough,
Correct.
right? Specifically, how do you intend to raise this big money? Because there's certain fees and inaugural fee, or when you are vying for ULA position, you pay $500, $600. It's not definitely it's not going to cut it. Give me
You're right.
some big stuff here. How you
You're
can
right.
raise big money to do the big thing.
Dennis, you just heard what I said, but I gotta say to you, that inaugural ball, that $100 you're gonna pay anyway. So
Okay.
that you're gonna pay that $100 anyway, because it's gonna be a grand inaugural on March 26, 2022. But that besides the inaugural, which you said is another program, usually just taxation is always a big fundraiser. But we're trying our best, Dennis, to do it differently, through some other means. That just like what I just
So
suggested.
you have been in ULA for some time now. In general, what do you see? And up to now, there are people asking, why do I even need to become part of ULA? Because people have not really felt, the kind of big things that ULA is capable of doing. So being in ULA for a while, what are some of the areas you see that the union has not done well that you're going to change?
Dennis, the thing about a union is that a community or an organization is an embodiment of its membership, right? So just like Sia was saying, people don't pay money, but they want to, they want to condemn and criticize, the organization. So me personally, I think there's a need to be first a member of ULA because it has a history. It is an organization that people know. For example, on November 27, coming in as a new administration, we felt the need that we needed to fight for our brothers and sisters who were granted this LRIF in 2019. Some of them filed, they didn't get no response for immigration and then we organized an immigration summit. The friends of his kind in ULA. And experts were able to come, advocates were able to come. We had a very huge viewers, and thank you to FOL for helping to streamline that on Facebook. So one of the things that I would like to do is to present myself, is to sell the organization to the Liberian people. Because when people are informed, when people are aware as to what you are doing, then they can be able to participate, they can be able to contribute. And that's why this administration will try its best to be visible as much as possible. And that is the third layer of our 100-day plan. We're trying to see if we can do newsletter. We already have a Facebook page. The website, we're still developing it. Hopefully in January, it's going to be a brand new website. We already have, I think, Instagram, the guys in the communication system. So all of these platforms, we want to utilize them and sell the organization and bring ULA to the Liberian people. In that way, they will be informed. Because when people are not aware, Dennis, you can't go to them the next day and say, give me money or this is what we're doing. So my elementary, I always say that, my elementary understanding, and I was taught, in development science, you learn, you educate, and then it becomes easy to organize.
And are you saying that has been your problem in ULA, and that's why you're trying to change? Because that was my specific question.
Yeah, I think communication is a huge deficit.
Yeah, and Mr. President, if I may here, yeah, if you don't mind, ULA is for all Liberians, and we all need to play our part. there is a stigma out there uh, against ULA, and it is your challenge as leaders uh, to beat that, because some of it I want to believe is not true. Uh, so I want to encourage ULA to be out there and tell the Liberian people about your organization.
Yeah.
I am suggesting that you identify projects and ask Liberians to contribute to these projects. Maybe
Right.
identify the project, maybe do the layout.
Yeah.
Come here, focus on Liberia. We are willing to host you at least once every month. Come here,
Thank you.
if possible, free of charge. Free
Thank
of
you.
charge. Come and tell the Liberian people what you are doing. Seek their help. Attend events. Tell them about you. That maybe that will help.
Thank you.
I have to leave because of family schedule.
Okay.
Dennis will continue the interview. Thank you for coming.
Yeah. Thank
We'll
you,
take a
Sia,
short break,
for that.
and when we come back, we're going to take comments.
At Focus on Liberia, we discuss everything Liberia, from education to politics, arts and culture, entertainment, agriculture, history, religion, family, and technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Dennis Jah.
Liberia, this is Dennis Yard, and we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. Our conversation today is with Mr. Shiwoh Kamara. He's the national president of the Union of Liberian Associations in the America. At this time, Mr. Kamara will get some comments here. This one from Dave Jai. Say, hello, brother Kamara. I know you are an honest man. Will you apologize to Liberians for ULA for the destruction of Liberia due to ULA's misguided politics towards Liberia? Let me bring in second one. Please jot that down. This one from Sam Wallow. What is one key accomplishment of ULA in the past 20 years? Just one. So you can take those two first.
Mhm. I wish my brother would have given me some specifics about the misguided policies, but sometimes these things happen and the organization is condemned. But my predecessors and those who led the organization, I think whatever steps and actions they take, unless I'm able to, he's specific. I can't say they were misguided, policies. The second thing was, I lost track of that. Okay. One key accomplishments, ULA fought many decades ago when I came here in early 2000, advocated for Liberian, not to be deported for DED or TPS. And that was a huge accomplishment. When I became community president, the person who was president at the time was Emmanuel Weti. 10,000 Liberians were on the line to be deported to Liberia. There were times that we left our jobs and went to Washington, D.C., mobilized Liberians and advocated. We mobilized Liberians in each state capital. And of course, those people, a lot of them were not deported. And I think that effort led to what we now have today as LRIF, that we are still championing, that we had a first immigration summit on November 27, and we had some experts and everything else. And not only did we host that summit, but we also had a Call Your Congress Day, campaign. And then yesterday, I even spoke to a newspaper reporter from Axios. And, I told them ULA was very disappointed because most of the papers have been stuck at immigration, and we are hoping that Congress will be able to give an extension. So in my mind, without even talking about the multi-party democracy that you today, one of us can be a president of Liberia or a senator or a representative in Liberia, I think that is one of the key accomplishments of ULA.
Thank you. Let's read a few more comments here. Dave again, economic and quality of life improvement for Liberian is by far essential than this bloviated clamoring about multi-party democracy. How significant is a democracy for people, majority of whom do not understand the basic tenets of democracy and do not have the basic life needs? Let's continue with more comments here. Dave, continue. Do you think 2 years are enough to get you do those reforms you intend to bring about? Michael's Weir, will ULAA pledge support to presidential candidate or a political party in Liberia? Dave is back. What will ULAA do in trying to restrain or tame Liberians in the U.S. from propping up incompetent people to ascend to presidential power in Liberia, like what Minnesota and Philadelphia have done in creating Weir and Ellen Johnson, also in the formation of Model, that's the rebel Model? Abby Tyler asked, why should I be a member of ULAA? Abby also continued, ULAA has no relationship with ULAP, that is the United Liberian Association of Bucks County, Pennsylvania, one of the most productive Liberian organizations in America. Elder Joseph Kokro said, interesting that with all the so-called criticism of ULAA since 1975 has a viable organization, interest in its existence seems to be growing more and more.
Correct.
James D. Barkley, President Kamara was elected on a clean and fair system. He should encourage chapters to follow the same path. This will attract Liberians to their chapters and to the union. I am aware this is an uphill battle, but achievable. These are some of the comments, Mr. Kamara.
Okay, first, they talk about some misguided policy, which I, responded to. I think they talk about also the quality of life of the Liberian people. So my administration, like I said previously, will work with the government of Liberia, but at the same time, it would hold the government to its feet, like I said on October 17, about improving the quality of life, merely through a health system, healthcare, and other things that will make the country better. But I just want to, encourage the brother who asked the question that it is all of us responsibility, as citizens of Liberia, that when we are asking ULAA, for example, to be critical on the government, we too, should not be, doing something on the contrary. We should be consistent with what we are asking ULAA to do. So ULAA is going to hold the government accountable. ULAA is going to do everything else in its best, but it is all of us responsibility to hold the government of Liberia to improve the quality of life. And we can do that through our elected representatives and, of course, senators and other people in government, our own family people who have positions in the government. The other thing I heard too was that can ULAA pledge support to presidential, candidates or political parties? No. ULAA has a policy of general non-alignment anywhere where the interest of Liberia is being discussed, just like on November 7, when we were invited by Ambassador Joseph Boyka. I was there present, and there were things that I wanted to say, but at some point, I didn't have the opportunity because the atmosphere became a little bit clouded. But wherever Liberia is being discussed, ULAA will be present, ULAA will sit at the table, but we cannot align, we cannot support a political party. Somebody talk about why should I be a member of ULAA, and it's the same person who talk about ULAA. This gentleman that is president for the Bucks County Association, when I was president for LAP, I worked with him, I collaborated with him. I remember when we brought in Peter Bala here in 2009, he was part of that committee, he was part of that celebration when we had Celebrate Africa. I think it's a very good organization, but being a member of a local organization, is good, but you also need you also need a national representative, and that's why ULAA is, because if something strikes, you'll be struggling around here asking for support. For example, the Liberian Refugee Immigration Fairness Act that was passed in 2019. It is ULAA that saw it fit as an issue. And now, because of the call we made, we asked our members to make those calls to Congress. We also hosted the one-day Call Your Congressman campaign. Newspapers now are picking up the story. And right now, there's a bill before Congress, to request for an extension. So those are some of the reasons why you need to belong to ULAA, because it fights and, of course, it advocates and support, whatever is are the wishes of the general Liberian population.
So Mr. Kamara, she's saying that organization, ULAA, has no relationship. Shouldn't that organization be like a member organization of ULAA?
I'm not really sure, because the thing about it is that lab is right here, and I think that organization maybe is about maybe 20 miles less. You tell me, because you lived there before, 20 miles less, from Pennsylvania. So, that's something we can look into. But I know that the gentleman who is there has held that organization, and they support in their own local, community. But again, that's not enough. But in terms of membership, we'll look into that.
Okay. Let me see if that's all the questions that we have. All right, and then with Reverend Barclay saying that we should encourage chapter to follow the same path of a fair election, because I think one reason why some people don't support this organization is because of the lack of transparency. Most elections are, you see some level of fraud. The financial system is always in secrecy, and people are not accountable and transparent. So what will ULAA do differently to attract more people? Because your financial, system, your electoral system, all these things should be fair, transparent, and leaders should be accountable.
I know where. Thank you, Reverend Barkley, for that question. I know where he's going. The voting machine was very good, but I don't know how much was paid for it. I heard the price, which I'm not prepared to talk about. But anything that will be transparent will be encouraged, and those ideas will sell them to the local chapter and encourage them, to filter down, in their local community, so that when elections are held and results are given, people will trust the result. But then there's one thing I also want to say is, sometimes our people, or those who ascribe to, contest for positions, they go there with one goal or one objective, is to win. Once they don't win, even if that result was fair enough, they always would try to create, pandemonium within the organization or have a breakaway. So I'm encouraging people, if they're going to institutions, for elections, have an open mind. You know that I'm a very good example. Even when I had reasons, to contest results and things like that, I was very critical. I analyzed the results, some of the pitfalls, but at the end of the day, I accepted the result and walked away. So I will encourage the local chapters to be fair, to be transparent, and elections be open. But at the same time, those who are contesting must be prepared to accept the result and not just, create confusion within the organization.
Thank you, Mr. Kamara. Prepare your closing comment as we give you announcements here.
Mm-hmm.
On Wednesday, that's Wednesday this week, former TRC Commissioner Massa Washington will be my guest, and she will be responding to an interview Chucky Taylor, that's the son of President Taylor, who's now serving a 97-year sentence in a prison in Virginia. He had an interview with the BBC, and Miss Washington will be responding to that right here on Focus on Labrador's Wednesday at 6 p.m. Then on Saturday, our FOL Marketplace team will be here to talk about growth without liquidity. We see that we had a new budget where we see that the budget has gone up. There's a printing of new 48 billion Liberian banknotes. So our team called that growth without liquidity. So come on Saturday and listen to that. That will be right here on Focus on Liberia. We also encourage you, if you want to send money to Liberia, to Africa, use Kana Cash. The CEO, Mr. Spencer Bia, is a fellow Liberian. So in order to use Kana Cash, you can download the app from your Google Play Store or from your App Store. That's the app. You can get that from the Google Play or your Apple App Store. Sending money is very easy. Enter the send amount, choose your recipient, choose the payment method, you confirm it, and there you go, the money is gone. Stop going to Western Union or MoneyGram every day, they're blocking you. Use Kana Cash and tell them FOL told me to do so. Mr. Kamara, thank you so much for spending your evening with us. At this time, we want to get your closing comment. Anything else we didn't cover that you want to touch on? And if you have anything that people watching you and who will watch later that you want for them to hear.
So, but then first of all, I want to say thank you so much for being kind enough, to host us, as leaders of diaspora organization coming in, and this was intended for people to listen, for people, to see the honesty and some of the agenda items we bring. I also want to say thank you for, extending our invitation to come on once a month. That's something we honor, and we are very.
My co-host, he didn't consult me. He talks too much.
Well, I finished taking it now. And I want to say thank you for, for hosting us. I just wanted to close by saying, too many times I know that our organizations, whether a bigger melting pot like ULAA or even community organizations, maybe even the churches, social clubs, they disappoint us. But, you always need a leadership that is tested. Those people who know me previously in other organizations, how I led the Liberian Association of Pennsylvania and made it second to none as a chapter organization. We are asking you to trust us, to trust ULAA, give us a chance, but also participate as a member down to your local chapters. And the way you can do that is to be, a member of some of the committees we have. You can go to our ULAA.lrb.org and see some of the committees you want to be a part of. Then you can contact your local chapter presidents. We have more than 18 chapters, but we want to say that the blueprint we bring, engagements, will be trying our best to unify all of the chapters that left the union, and we'll do our best to establish a sound foundation on the policies and procedures, and of course, to serve ULAA and bring a new ULAA to the Liberian people. You can rest assured that we'll try our best to do that, and we depend on your support. I'm very grateful for the team that we all have built. This team is one of the best teams. We spent so many times, on meetings, and all is intended to just kind of craft the best ideas that work. So we're doing that, fellow citizens, those in the Facebook land, we're doing that almost every week. And we wake up with ULAA and we sleep with ULAA because we want to do things differently. And all we need is your support. Thank you so much, Mr. Daniel, for inviting us. And those in Facebook land, thank you for listening to us. And God bless.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kamara. I want to thank our viewers for staying here with us. Here at Focus on Liberia, we educate, we elevate, and promote all things Liberia. There is no organization too small or too big. As long as you have the name Liberia connected with you, we want to have your voice heard so that we all can benefit from what you bring to the table. On behalf of all of us here at Focus on Liberia, we say thank you so much for watching. And we never close our broadcast without playing the song that says we are all Liberians. Whether you believe ULAA is representing you or not, or you have all the criticism of ULAA or all the positive things to say about ULAA, we are all Liberians. And every day it should be your fight to make Liberia a better place. Have a good night and God bless you.
Thank you.
We are